masonry background as an installer. Happy to be part of the team. I've been with H&B for about a year and a half, so I'm pretty eager to be involved with this team.
I'm Robin Keenum. I live in a small town called Odenville, just outside of Birmingham, Alabama. My local branch is the Birmingham, Alabama branch. I've been with H&B for about 6 years, coming up in April.
Very cool. Jeremy, do you want to say who you are?
I'm Jeremy Douglas, Director of Architectural and Engineering Services at H&B, 20 years experience in the masonry industry. And I'm in beautiful, though not today, upstate New York out of Saratoga Springs.
Wonderful. So again, we're here to really serve as this liaison for the design community as you're looking at any H&B products. And what I'm really excited about is, while we've been owned by MyTech for the last 10 years or so, we were a family business for a lot of years prior to that, and you'll know that Homan and Bernard name. We're really excited about the vision and the leadership that we have for this team and where we're going with that MyTech corporate culture that we get a chance to be a part of now. And so I think you're going to have a lot of fun watching us bring about these innovative solutions that you are looking for within your design world, and how we're going to be able to be on the forefront of that and deliver some of those conversations. So that is how Casual Conversations evolved. And what we're talking about today is really going off of the discussion that we had last week of this thermal brick support system, and just some of those questions that you maybe are having that you can't really get from the submittal sheet or our online portal. So one of the things that comes to mind first that I was hoping we could all just kind of roundtable discussion, and based on any experience you've had with any owners or firms that have utilized TBS to this point, is what's driving an owner to make this decision? Or is it the architect firm themselves who have decided that we want to control this thermal bridging? Is it owner driven? Is it project specific driven? Like, what have you guys seen out there so far?
So a job I've been working on just a little bit recently. The reason why it was a good fit is they were trying to attach into a post tension floor. So they were looking for a type of embed attachment, but wanted to keep the importance of a continuous air barrier. So it was naturally a good fit to get the best install for a weather resistive barrier, limited detailing with minimal embedment into a post tension floor. So that's a scenario I've just been involved with recently. So
Right. So solving a solution then for what they're trying to achieve, and this ultimately detailing, right, is really what it came down to.
yeah, detailing, yeah, and a little bit of worry on proper installation into the post tension. They were afraid to do a post installed support system, just with the fear of disrupting any tendons or bracketry in that post tension floor.
So, Jeremy, I kind of want to send this over to you for a second, because I just think you're the best person to talk on this, because I think that what you said earlier as we were talking about TBS and how really just this air barrier detailing in general is what is driving a lot of this movement towards these systems. Do you want to just elaborate on that a little bit?
It is. So I was actually going to jump in because of that. So, initially, I think my experience over the last, say, 5 years in working with these systems has been a real drive from the design professionals trying to provide their building owners with the most energy efficient building that they possibly could. What I've found beyond that, though, is that recently this has really been driven by the need for better air barrier detailing. I mean, we have such a conundrum with trying to detail these air barriers around pre-installed shelf angles, with wrapping and so on and so forth. It becomes really difficult. And once a lot of these designers have had the opportunity to work with some of these TBS type systems, or post-installed offset shelf angle systems, and they see the benefit of the better air barrier detail, it just becomes sort of second nature to want to utilize something like that to solve those problems.
So I was going to speak to that as well. Just jumping in Canada, I would say the main driver for a solution like this is we have continuous insulation requirements now at the forefront of our building code, which has started to surface mostly in residential construction and now more so in commercial. And like Jeremy was saying, one of the requirements for continuous insulation detailing is a plane of insulation that you can easily tape and detail and seal so that there's no breaks. So the TBS system that we're offering is a good fit with that, with the continuous insulation requirements. So it cleans up those details at the through wall where there was a massive break and making it very difficult to tape and detail around a traditional shelf angle system. So I think that's where it lives in the Canadian market right now, is with the continuous insulation code. We're seeing really being paid attention to in our market.
Okay. So I totally agree that continuous insulation, we're going to continue to, as we talked about last week, this shelf angle condition allows for a lot of thermal bridging there. And so what I think that you're going to find is, as we start to commission these buildings and we start to ask ourselves, we're designing to a specific R value. And at what point are the buildings that we're designing actually functioning at that R value we intend it to? And as we start to test that and do some thermal analysis and start to look at, wait a minute, we're losing a whole bunch of energy through these different ways. Now we need to start addressing that. And that's really what we're doing, is coming alongside of this, so that you are making sure that building, that you're putting that continuous insulation back there, matters and it's for something. You're just not just letting it leave through a different part of your building that you didn't even give consideration to. So that's, I think, the best part of it is that continuous insulation back behind there and that thermal break, and able to really start to understand how we're going to get these buildings to actually give back that energy savings to your owner long term. We're on that discussion. I just lost my train of thought. What else do you guys have on TBS?
If I can just jump in there. So to that point, we've designed buildings with essentially expendable R value. So we know that there's going to be an R value reduction, and sometimes we measure that well, sometimes we don't. And I think for a long time, and depending on how stringent the energy codes are in various jurisdictions, we haven't done a very good job with that. And so the notion is that, okay, well, what we do then is we just throw more insulation at the problem, right? So 2 inches becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. There's scenario, and there's standard details for like New York City School Construction Authority with that require 5 inches of insulation now. And the reality is that if your interruption is something like, a shelf angle, that, by the way, when you put those extra inches of insulation in that wall, now the shelf angle gets wider, and that now means that it has to be thicker. So there's way more mass, there's way more distribution of that metal through the continuous insulation, which isn't really continuous then. Which now means too that your anchoring system may need to become more robust. So the anchors themselves and the ties themselves may have to be heavier. They may have to be spaced more closely together. So throwing insulation at the wall doesn't necessarily solve any problems. And if you've got a really wide angle that's displacing that insulation, I don't care how much insulation you throw at it, you're not going to make up for that R value reduction that you've created in that. So there's a lot of challenges that we've just shrugged our shoulders to over the years and said, oh, well, throwing more insulation at it's got to solve the problem, but it doesn't.
Right. So let's say we want to use this TBS system. What does that process look like as they enter into us? They make that call to us. We've convinced them, yep, this is right for our project. There's so many benefits. What does it look like now?
So this is where we get our engineers involved. These are custom engineered specific for the project. So our engineering department, basically we acquire certain drawings, certain details, some elevations, maybe some coordination with either a GC or a designer on the project, and pretty much our engineering will take it over from there. there, and they custom design it as a package, start to finish.
Yeah, and the cool part about, the designer, the owner being able to flip it over to our engineering team is it frees them up to focus on, other aspects of the job. And going off what you said, Jason, it is a completely custom piece, whereas, some other companies may make them, built to sell, where it might not always fit into their project exactly how it's designed. Whereas when we take it, we do design it custom to the project. So then it goes back to those air barrier flashing details. It's going to fit in, ideally exactly how you designed it and you thought it out on the project.
Yeah, eliminating unforeseens, custom fabrication site. I agree totally.
So we could use them.
So if I
Jeremy.
can, Linda.
Yep.
One of the great things about having the engineering team involved early on is that we can sort of figure out where the pain points are going to be in the design or engineering of these systems. As an example, if we're utilizing the slab edge to connect these brackets to, and we're dropping them down to a window head, and that window head is 22 or 23 inches below the slab edge, as an example, so we may have some rotation that we need to figure out how to accommodate or deal with. We can talk with the design team and maybe make some structural suggestions at that time early on, whereas if we're doing it early enough, we're not upsetting the whole apple cart, and later on when somebody's saying, oh, how do we kind of configure, our wall sections now to accommodate the system? And by then you've designed all these other elements around these structural elements that we probably would have suggested changing earlier. But the great thing about the process is that, we have the experience and time and understanding of not only the engineering perspective of what has to happen in these systems, but also the constructability of it and how practical are some of these sometimes. And so, our engineering team will kind of look at those pain points earlier on and figure out, even what type of system that we would consider introducing to this project to help eliminate a lot of those during the construction process.
Right. And I actually just had a project come across my desk where an architect was reaching out, inquiring about the TBS system. And I brought it to the attention of our engineers. And before we even started designing the TBS system, they brought up points that the architect wasn't able to, think about prior. Basically, what had happened is the engineering team got back to them and suggested getting a pullout strength on the surrounding structural, brick veneer around the TBS, because the TBS system is only going to be as good as what it is going into. So right now the process is that this architectural firm is going through, an outside party, getting those structural pullouts of the surrounding brick to see if this TBS system can even be applicable to their job site.
It's such a good point. I mean, just having the experts that we have at H&B that have dealt with these systems, that's what they're working on to partner with on that design side is really going to be instrumental for helping you get the project that you want delivered over and constructed, so that your building envelope is doing what you want it to do. That's the whole point of this, right? So we made a point that we were going to keep these conversations short, and we're coming upon our 15-minute mark. Any last comments to leave our folks with?
I'll make a comment, if I may. What we were talking about earlier today in our own group is for the contractor. I think one of my favorite features is the ability for the mason, who is going to be ultimately responsible for the aesthetics and the plumbness and the straightness of their walls. It puts the power in their hands to start with setting that construction with this system, because it allows them to have a fully adjustable shelf angle, where traditionally they're used to starting from a shelf angle that was possibly installed by another trade, not familiar with their layout methods, their strings, their ways of starting their construction. And we are giving them a highly adjustable system that can accommodate irregularities, which are quite often reality on a job site. Poured walls that are not perfect. They may have projections or bow outs or areas where it's not perfectly straight. So a very versatile and adjustable system for the trade gives them the power to set things right from the beginning, and gets you that much closer to the perfect exterior wall.
And just to piggyback off of that, I know we've got to wrap it up, but H&B MyTech is the only company where you can get one manufacturer to design two key components inside of that envelope. One being as intricate as it is, being the TBS system, but also you can tie the same manufacturer into who's manufacturing the air barrier that's on the project. That is so convenient in terms of, just from what I know on job sites where you have compatibility issues, or you have to wait on this rep to meet with that rep, and you've got so many different things that have to line up. We're the only company where you can literally go to the one source, take care of both of those angles.
Absolutely. And really a great note to end on is just that we're here as more than just one component of your wall system. We're here to help you through all of that and the transitions of that and the parts that are the pain points of who's going to help you through that, because everyone's got their own agenda, and we can help you through that because it's all in our wheelhouse and it's stuff that we understand and the products that we've developed. So we would love to have the conversation further if this is something you're looking for on your project. And with that, thanks for tuning in.